Started at Arthur Andersen.
How much paper did you shred?
Yeah. Oh!
Just a little bit.
So if you left it before 10 o'clock on a month end, if you left before midnight on a quarter end, you'd get called out. Same sort of thing. You've got to lead by example as well as by policy, haven't you?
And half the time, I sometimes wonder if they have a team because they have to be seen to be doing sustainability the right way.
Are you accusing companies of greenwashing?
No.
That's shocking, Tania.
Buying a house or buying into a partnership?
Ooh. Oh.
Yep. Stays the same.
Welcome back to Beanies In A Pod. We don't need any of that, we got this.
All right.
So, on today's episode, we're going to go through two of the sections we had before, Hydro Pride and Snack Attack. Got a couple of exciting jingles for those, actually, so we'll see what happens there. However, this is actually a landmark episode. Can anyone guess why? Anyone want to take a shot at it?
The snacks?
Nope.
No.
Wrong.
The number 3.
Wrong.
Is it the things on the table?
Wrong.
No. Okay.
Is it?
This is our first guest on the podcast. That's why it's a landmark episode. We've got Tania with us.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
We first met because I, for the love of God, fell out one final time with Iris. I lost patience with their lack of support and had one or two problems I needed to resolve with Iris. We had to get the submissions in, and we had to close off, and we had to also look at potentially where we're going to go in the future, what accounting systems. I wasn't thinking about anything really at that stage. And I can't even remember. I can't even remember where I found you now, but there was some sort of link.
Cashflow Direct.
Yeah, there was some sort of link. Who knows how to do? Who's a good accountant contact in your area that's close by that can help you with Iris? And you were second on the list. I put in the call to both.
Second.
And you called me back, I think, within 15 minutes.
Wow.
Wow.
Applause.
Rapid.
Applause. There you go.
It's quite a long applause, this one.
Wow. No, but deserved. But no, you did. You called me back in 15 minutes. To this day, I still haven't heard from the other firm I put a call into.
Oh, God. Okay. Yeah, so I work at Square Mile Accounting. I am operations director, and I also have a client portfolio, Bots for that being one of them. Yeah, and we support mostly startups in the tech and sort of sometimes short tech space. We also have some more sort of regular owner managed businesses we like to work with. Mm-hmm. We're a team of about 16 people, and we sort of dotted around the home counties. And yeah, we are a cloud accountant. We are trying to be sort of up there with using digital wherever we can, providing the full support, etc. So we hope we do a good job, and client centricity is what it's all about.
And so you are you the digital firm?
I would say from what Will Farnell would define a digital firm, we've always been a digital firm. Historically, I started off my own practice, and then the other founder of Square Mile was David Gormer, and he started Square Mile, and we knew each other from City Days where we worked together.
So just to take us way back. Where did it all begin?
Where did it begin? I had a 15-year career working in the city. Started at Arthur Andersen. Ooh. Last graduate intake before it all went pear-shaped.
How much paper did you shred?
Yeah.
Just a little bit. But I didn't. I had an interesting one because I was in the energy department, but I wasn't actually an accountant. I was a consultant.
Okay.
So I went out and helped looking at, for example, nat gas flows, electricity flows, trading apps was actually what I worked on. Still ended up, for some reason, shredding a nat gas trading workflow, which had nothing to do with anything. The whole thing was just weird.
Shred everything.
I don't know. I wasn't really involved. I'd only been there 6 months. I was a grunt doing what I was told. Yeah. And when that all sort of happened, I ended up moving sideways to a client who was a trading company, an energy trading company, to run their middle office. So help with the trade processing, the accounting, the finances. And then they lasted about a year when, off the back of Enron, they also folded, which was a shame. So I then moved sideways to Morgan Stanley and worked as a trade accountant there for, I don't know, a few years, and moved into ops, then into IT, and back into global projects and regulatory. So I sort of had a really varied career. And after about 15 years, decided...
I had enough of that.
Yeah, a little bit kind of like... just wanted to do something else. I was very corporate, was definitely on the treadmill.
Yeah.
And, you have a family, and my husband also worked in the city, and at a certain point, something's got to give. So took a break, and I thought, God, what am I going to do with myself? Like, yeah. And I thought, I'll go back and be an accountant.
Why not?
Yeah, I can do this. And it turns out I could. So I set up a firm called North Star Accounting in Surrey, and it grew from there probably for about 3 or 4 years, and then got in touch with David just to actually for some support on R&D, because at Square Mile we do R&D for a lot of our clients, and we ended up having a chat thinking, hold on, what are we doing? This might be better together, right? Because firms coming together, it's a general trend across the accounting industry anyway. So we put the two practices together, and we are where we are today.
What really gets you up in the morning and you think, I can't wait to get going on?
2 or 3 things. I do, and this, I believe in helping people. If I thought I didn't actually add value to what they do, I wouldn't do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done a job like that in the city for 15 years, and it left me cold in the
treadmill.
end. Yeah. So it's about clients adding value. It's also about the team, because the team all work for me, and I value them. Right? They're, you talked on your previous podcast about Gen Z, etc., and those challenges, etc. Things move on. You have to sort of learn how you're going to handle that and expectations. So, yeah, I do it for the people, the clients. I learn something new every day. They're really,
Every day's a school day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's varied. It's interesting.
What was it like being at Andersen's when all hell broke loose? Do you remember?
Vaguely, because to be honest, I was doing exams. I was sort of
Jesus.
in or out. And at Andersen's, or sort of the Big Four, you get put on block leave, so you go out for 2-3 months. I was also on client site, so I wasn't in the office. So a lot of it just passed me by, and I'd only been there 6 months. So you sort of hear this story, something bad's happening, and then I wasn't really as switched on as you might have thought I was as a
I often wonder,
naive 22-year-old.
I've got clear memories of it from the outside looking in. I was at Oracle back in those when it all broke, and it was phenomenal.
It was huge. Yeah.
Every day, in fact, maybe several times a day, some new bombshell just erupted, and then something else, and it was just just as it unwound, and it unwound rapidly, and massively as well, and it all just happened and overnight almost. Over the space of a week, it was everything from there's a problem, maybe, to everyone's going to jail. It literally was. It was like that. Like it was Andersen's, and then it was Enron, and it just kept going between the two. And the way it unfolded and this pace which it unfolded, it was something else to behold. These sort of things don't happen too often, thankfully.
Yes.
They've happened too often.
Yep.
But not as often as they could. I mean,
it was certainly. I remember it, but I didn't. I guess because I'd only been there 6 months, I didn't personally feel sort of involved, culpable. I mean, it had a big impact on me. I ended up moving, and I moved to another firm that folded as a result. I ended up doing the claim to try and claw back any money.
Domino effect, wasn't it?
It was huge.
It was.
Yeah.
I probably noticed it more because I worked for an American company at the time, and literally on the back of that, Sarbanes-Oxley was presented to the accounting world. Wow. God.
And it dominated my life.
Still have
for the next
nightmares
2
about
years.
significant control spreadsheets, and you guys have been spared this sort of thing. But that was, and that's where it rambled on, and 2 years later, 3 years later, we were still dealing with it on a day-to-day basis, and auditors would just lose their heads over the tiniest things, Certainly. It says Wednesday at 3:00. You did it at 4:00. There's a problem. What do you mean there's a problem? But that's how it was for 2-3 years. Everyone just lost their minds. Anyway, we digress. But it was. I just wanted to ask you about that because that's.
No, it certainly. I would say it possibly gave me some opportunities because I ended up moving on. It turned out I learned quite quickly at Arthur Andersen I did not like audit. Surprisingly enough, I found it quite dull. So
Does anyone like audit though?
I don't think
it
so.
It feels like one of those
things.
things.
It's an important job, but when you're a junior in audit, it's it's quite repetitive, shall we say. So I moved on to trade accounting. It was really interesting, working with the trading desk at Morgan Stanley, which was, slightly, I wouldn't say they revolutionised because there were other firms doing it, Barclays, Goldman's, but the investment bank really in commodities, sort of really doing that sort of exciting trading and opportunities. Yeah, it was a really interesting time.
As an accountant, because obviously, you mentioned a few names there. Some of them are no longer with us either.
Yeah.
So for the similar reasons that we had with Enron and Anderson's, and I don't know why we got onto fraud and stuff, but but it is amazing because the things that suddenly become very interesting in our world as accountants end up being tomorrow's front page.
Yeah.
At some point, it's tricky, isn't it? And trying to find the balance between compliance and the impartial advice and guidance and being the watchman.
Yeah. And being prepared to take the exposure. When I was first set up at North Star, I actually resigned my biggest client. It was 25% of turnover because I found a 2-page spread in the Sunday Times, unbeknownst to me, once things were filed. And I was like, wow. And they were absolutely spot on, but it was about what this organisation did. They took data, and I was like, wow, I just hadn't anticipated it. So I worked with them to find a new firm to work with because I felt we were a small practice at the time, and I found it extremely stressful and quite vulnerable at that point. If someone had, everything was absolutely spot on and correct, but at the time it wasn't something I was prepared for, shall we say? Yeah.
Can you talk about this, or is this a subject of a court matter or something?
No, absolutely, it's fine. It was a charity I worked with, and people do go around because charities need to be white and white, and they.
They're often not.
Often not. But we had gone through and prepared all that, done a lot of extra assurance work with them to get sort of proper risk documents in place and all the charity sorts would be met, etc. But it was still a bit of an eye-opener to me, and we did move it on to a specialist accounting firm. But it's interesting. I just got a bit blindsided by it. I wasn't expecting that sort of response. So the things you learn as you build up your practice and navigate through troubled waters.
The split with advisory to compliance fees in the bigger firms is probably higher, maybe 60% on advisory, and compliance is probably dropping. Where is it on SME, sort of smaller firms, do you think?
I would say, as a sweeping generalisation again, and this is just my view, I don't actually know. I would say that the majority of small accounting firms are primarily compliance focused, and they're missing an opportunity around the advisory. But the challenge with the advisory is the margins of being a smaller accounting firm are smaller, shall we say, than they are if you go with the larger firms. Because of the reputation, the credibility, you pay for some of that, and basically you're paying over the odds for the same service, but you're getting the name, and that matters if you've got investors. You're listed, etc. Whereas if you're a smaller firm, you tend to shop around more, and you pay for you don't want to pay for top however many without naming companies. But you then end up with slimmer margins, and then having the ability to go out and hire the people who can do the advisory, with the right skill set.
Yeah, because they obviously are more expensive to buy in.
Yeah, so you have to bring them in, but if you don't bring them in, then you can't offer it. And if you don't necessarily staff retention, getting the right hire as well, so that they stay and actually have the ability to do what you need. They can do the forecasting, sit on the board, etc. That becomes a challenge, especially if you, for example, we're a firm of 16. We're at that. It's a transition phase we're in at the moment between small, because it's much easier to stay in control if you've got a firm of 5, 6, 7, 8. You can stay over everything. The quality control's easier. The advisory, the moment you grow, it becomes it is a tipping point, and that's why you'll see a lot of firms get to a point where they either merge, and there's a lot of acquisitions around. You've got Danes as it's going on, etc., or you have to sort of bite the bullet, flip how you completely work, standardise all your compliance, remodel everything, work out how you do the advisory, have you got the right people in place, and what's your niche? Because if you try and do everything for everyone,
you can't. You do nothing for anyone.
It won't work.
When you've been bringing on new talent, what's your experience been in new staff coming on and finding the right culture fit? Because from what I saw at Accounttech, it's really important to kind of get those standardizations early, so you're getting people that are on the same vision. Yes and no.
Okay. Because you need diversity.
Okay.
You need breadth of experience. Different skill sets. So for certain people, they might be more production focused, and that that they are really detailed and they love reviewing work, etc. And others are more client-centric, for example, and will face off to a client brilliantly. Different skill sets. Everyone needs to be able to do a bit of all of it. But if we hired in the same, it wouldn't work. Yeah, that's part of the challenge, is finding people who have the same values as us, which shouldn't be too hard, because we do the right thing. We listen to our clients, we're client-centric, etc. We have a defined set of values that were pulled together in various strategy workshops with the team 2 or 3 years ago, and they still stand today. And they were values that we were working to at that point, and we just look to sort of reinforce them. And it's part of our hiring process to go through that. So it's about finding people who are smart, can do, want to do it for the clients. But also appreciate other people's abilities and diversity, and aren't afraid to put their hands up, because we, if something goes wrong or something doesn't, quite work out, you need to be able to put your hand up and ask for help, sort of own it, fix it, sort it, and move on. And that's really important.
What have the age group of the new hires been? Have they been more younger?
Most of them are in their 20s.
Okay. So that's more the Gen Z.
Yeah, absolutely.
How have you found the communication with?
I'm the second oldest in the firm, definitely.
Still quite a young firm.
Yeah. I guess, how do I find it? I find they're brilliant, right?
Okay.
They're so smart, organised. I am amazed. Some of our apprentices who came on at 18 as school leavers, what they're able to do by the time they're 22 is just remarkable, because they're so hungry to learn. They're tech savvy already when they arrive. They look at things differently. They kind of enable us to stay sort of like as a tech savvy firm because of their approach and their appetite for learning. They're just they're remarkable. But also talk about some of the Gen Z stuff. We do, and one of the cultures we have in the firm is we try very hard to stick to core working hours. We don't ask people to work late if a VAT return needs filing late. And it's because the client didn't deliver. Well, bad luck to the client, right? They have multiple notices. It's not,
We can resign now.
Yeah. You're always good. You're always in on time. Whereas other firms, I know at other firms, we interview people and say, oh, God, I'm working long hours. I'm having to work when I'm on holiday. We just don't do that, right? We've got to respect work-life balance.
I guess that makes it easier to kind of retain the talent as well, because I know with the Gen Z, there's that culture fit of like, if you offered something at the start and now you're not providing it, it's like, oh, I do want to leave, but if you're sticking to it, then
we offer flexibility. We have core working hours, and as long as you can do your working hours within the week, and certain times of the month, for example, when we've got to prepare the investor packs, people might work longer hours, but they claw the time back at the end of the month, and they might finish at lunchtime on the Friday because they've already, we offer that everyone is mature enough and grown up enough to manage their workload.
It's funny because I like you, I came from I learnt my apprenticeship, if you want to call it that, in big corporates, where if you leave before 10 p.m. on a month end, you're looked at funny. I mean, I've been told, I used to go, one day I came in, my tie wasn't tied. I got told off, And this is a large US software company that I worked in the finance and accounts for. And it was like, well, excuse me, hang on a second, why isn't your tie tied? So if you left it before 10 o'clock on a month end, if you left before midnight on a quarter end, you'd get called out, because it was, we're a rapid fire, we've got these things in. So I came from a time when
I had
working overtime was not just expected.
Well, because I work on trading, it was a commodities trading desk, and the close between 4 and 5, you still had to get a P&L out every day. And there was no software built. It was all too new. I built the software. I built access databases, and we built this and that. It was, obviously advanced technology, not.
It was for its time.
Yeah. But we were there at least till 9 o'clock every night doing this. So the motivation was, actually, you can go home early if you can bring this in. Yeah. So we actually I spent probably half my time trying to work out how to introduce efficiency, streamline projects, which is how I ended up in a project role eventually, because that's how you claw back the time. And that comes back to, there is enough software and automation and out there today that you really shouldn't need people to stay late and do crazy hours. It's it's been a curse of the profession for a long time. And I think that's probably why I think accountants are so geared to innovation, because they want to engineer
a better way for themselves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're so motivated by, I can't believe, I mean, my generation now, if I said that I used to sit there for 7 days straight until 2 a.m. in the morning, go home and get back in for 6:37, they'd think you're mad, you know.
Yes.
But that was the norm. And, you know, when you have, especially when you report to the US,
Yeah.
and your boss is in the US and they're on different time zone to you, they expect you to work their time zone as well as everything else. So
And in addition, for example, in the city, we did probably about 55 hours a week was my average, I'd
Yeah.
say. But we also then did our accounting exams on top of that. And we didn't
Yeah.
get, I
No,
got a
we didn't
day
get
off
block
to do
leave.
the exam.
No, exactly.
And I think I just got the day off for the exam. I might have got a revision day. I think that was the Brucey bonus my kind boss gave me. Everything
Wow.
else I studied at the weekends and in the evenings. Whereas
yeah.
the team, we give them, they get their study leave, they get an extra revision day, they get the exam day, they get revision leave. It's like,
Yeah.
don't know you're born,
No.
but people don't know anything different.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't put anyone through what
No, you're
I
right.
went through.
You're
we
right.
talked about that, haven't we?
Yeah.
The expectation of like what
No.
you went through in your day, and then you kind of look at us
Yeah.
today and you think,
Yeah.
well, that would have been easy for me, but
Yeah, yeah. The norm
changes.
was, you know, do a full day's work, get home,
And then
dinner, do the stuff, put the kids to bed, and then start studying.
Yeah, or weekend. It's all
Yeah.
did. Yeah. So yeah, I think things have changed. And I wouldn't. Yeah.
That's why I feel not an accountant. After starting on that path.
I mean, partly, yeah. I did have sort of an experience like that. I just sort of...
That and he
like-
doesn't like ties.
I actually love a good tie, to be honest. But yeah, no, like, I was up until like 1 a.m, 2 a.m. sometimes getting things ready for close. Never actually got to the exam part, but I was like, how the hell if I can barely do this now? I wasn't really given that much training, though. That was the problem with that, I think.
We try very hard for that not to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of it because I probably work the longest hours, but that's because of my background and culture. And I like work. I'm, some
said
people
this
do,
before.
other people don't.
I think
Yeah.
that's fine, though, as long as it's understood by the people below you that they don't have to
Yep.
copy what you're doing.
Correct.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think it's a double-edged sword, though, because you can say, look, I'm going to work really hard because this is me and this is what I do. You don't have to. But almost by example, then it's hard to not follow.
Yeah.
So it's,
Yeah.
you're right. And occasionally you have to
I
make
have
a
to be
point of going
careful.
home early on a Thursday and saying, same
Yeah.
sort of thing. You've got to lead by example as well
Yep.
as by policy, haven't you? And
Mhm.
it's a hard one.
Yeah.
So I wanted
Okay.
to ask more about sustainability.
Yes.
Yes.
Because this was a big thing for me. We went to Accountex, which you've obviously heard the podcast, but I went there, and sustainability was really the big thing I went there for, to find out more about, because I didn't really have a clue. I thought I did, and I listened to other companies, and they said, oh yeah, we're planting trees, or we're doing that, and I thought, that doesn't sound like quite enough, and I don't disagree with planting trees.
Is that
What?
your tree?
These
Oh.
are seeds.
We haven't actually mentioned that properly, have we?
I'll get to that in a second.
From Accountex. But yeah, not that I disagree with planting trees, but I just think that's offsetting and it's 20 years away.
Mm-hmm.
It's good, we should do it, but I'm thinking, well, what else can I do though? What else? And I struggle because everything you read out there is all about the large companies.
Yeah. There's a
All of the impetus is all about large companies. It's all on them from a reporting point of view and all the
Mhm.
things they can do. And you ring up and they've got a team of people that does sustainability. I think, Christ, well, they've got teams there that are bigger than their entire companies combined.
And half the time, I sometimes wonder if they have a team because they have to be seen to be doing
Are
sustainability
you
the right
accusing
way.
companies of greenwashing?
No,
That's shocking, Tania. Shocking.
not at all.
But no, I also don't want to do greenwashing. And I don't want to put stuff on our website because it looks good. I don't want to put stuff on there because people think we should. I want to put things out there because I feel that there's millions of other companies like ours that are in the same boat. And we employ 50% of people. We're 99% of the businesses in the UK. It's probably very similar in other countries. So we've got an equal stake in the game. And if we did stuff, in fact, we can probably do things that add just as much, if not more value, because we've got more people, we've got more impact.
Yep.
So I started to look at this really seriously, and that's why I really went to Accountex, because I wanted to find out more. And I did find some brilliant things. I found there was some good, there's some bad and ugly, hence the title of the last podcast. There are a few that just don't really cater to the smaller business.
Yeah.
But there are some out there actually doing something positive, affordable,
Mm-hmm.
achievable, realistic, that you can do that don't take up resources
When you
you
say
don't
there
have.
are a few
Mm.
what? Apps?
Companies.
Companies,
So some of those
yep.
companies have apps behind them,
Mhm.
or on the front end. But there's more to it than just an app. It's not just an app. They are actually doing things, and there's programs in it. And I mean, the one I'm setting up at the moment, I've just in the process of setting up, is Ecology.
Mhm.
Yes, they have an app. You go on there, you connect it to Zero. So we've connected to Zero. It pulls in all of your receipts back to the year dot. So when you do start your measurements, you've actually not got a measurement from now forward. You've actually got measurements for the last 3 years.
And what are you measuring?
That's the CO2 part. So
Okay.
they've defined a way that's signed off by B Corp, the standard,
Yep.
of assigning credits, amounts, units to the supply chain.
Yep.
So Microsoft, all these sorts of things. They've got units that you can apply to each of those. So you've got, because the supply chain is where 90% of your emissions come from anyway. So they've got all those through. So every invoice we've ever done, every expense we've ever done, it's all in the system now. It's all got a unit associated with it, and they then give you, that's your CO2 emissions for your business out
Yep.
to the world through supply chain. You've also got your energy providers on there. It takes into working from home, hybrid, full in the office, how many hours per week, per month. It takes all of that into account,
Mhm.
and a few other things as well. So I found in one thing, it taught me things I didn't even know, and learnt things that I had no idea about.
Yep.
It gives me, just by connecting up the system, it pulls all of that in and then shows me. So I can see where we are today. So that's the first point. You've got to have a start point, right?
Yes.
The next thing is then the targets.
What do you do with that? Is it?
Hmm.
This is my commodities
Yeah.
background,
Mm.
because you can trade carbon trade credits. You can buy, sell, offset, do all sorts with them.
Mm.
Is it that they then? Is there an opportunity to say, well, if you wish to offset it, this, and they come up with suggestions?
Yes,
to,
there's actually a shop. So
yeah.
they've actually got their shop on there. So, and you've got the usual. You can plant trees. You can plant trees in the UK. You can plant trees and other stuff. There's other
Mhm.
projects, but there's other things as well, like wind farms and solar farms, and so not just ones that do offsetting, but ones that actually reduce.
Yeah.
And it sort of differentiates. You've got ones here that do offset, ones here. So you've got all the different types, and you can buy the ones as much as you want, wherever you want, and then get your credits at the same time.
And there's no commercial angle about selling the credit elsewhere.
No,
Okay.
not that I've seen so far.
Okay.
No, not that I've seen. So you support they've got projects on this. There's a project in Indonesia making earthen pots, that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So lots and lots of stuff on there. You pick the thing that you want to support, and then the type of impact that it has,
Hmm.
and buy what you want and when you can afford it.
It's great it's come round, because the very first project I worked on at Arthur Andersen
Mm.
was carbon credits.
Mm.
That long ago, back
Yeah.
in
Oh, yeah,
2001.
Yeah, yeah.
And we did talk about earthen pots in
Mm.
Africa,
Yeah.
and what they were burning and the damage it
Yeah,
caused.
yeah,
And that's
yeah.
what we were working on before
Yeah,
it all went wrong. So obviously there were some good things coming out
Yeah.
of Arthur Andersen as well as Enron. So yeah, but it's taken that
Yeah,
long
yeah.
to come to the front,
Mm.
to be, or to the forefront, shall we say, of I guess the general awareness
Yes.
across the
But also
public
the
that we have
ability,
to do.
the,
Yeah.
the ability to actually do things. So I'm may only have 20 quid this month to play with, right? So I'll take the 20 quid and I'll buy that project, or I'll support that project, and in return for that 20 quid I get these credits, they get offset and they reduce my output.
Brilliant.
Simple.
Yep.
And it's easy, it's affordable. You only pay what you can afford as well.
And is the sustainability that's probably the wrong word. Is the sustainability an environmental concern in particular, or is it about also, in addition, the welfare, the mindfulness, the bigger, and I guess this isn't new, the culture of the firm, because culture of the firm is something you should have in place anyway. It's not new, but it's much harder to measure. You can do your employee satisfaction surveys, etc., but
That's
how
right.
do you really gauge it and pull it into something tangible that can be measured, that then goes into reporting? Because there are all these sustainability reports for big companies, for example.
Yeah.
You've got to be careful that we don't impose similar sort of a bureaucratic burden on small companies.
Yeah.
In addition to,
And the way I'm looking at this is it's not obvious. It's not a project.
yeah,
It's becoming BAU. It's got to be part of our business as usual. It's got to be something that's baked into everything we do, everything we are, every day of the week. It's not a special effort. There'll be things that we do, special efforts, like we might get the whole company to plant tree day, whatever. But that's not actually the important part. It's the thing that you bake into the culture. And like we were talking about it already, but long hours and all that kind of stuff, that's all part of the culture. There are all the things that we've got to bake into our culture and our values. That's the hard, you're right though, that's the hard part to measure. The other things I've looked at, there's another company, Sustainability X, that have a simplified framework. It works off of the same one that the UN developed, which is like, God knows, 50 things. Right, but they've got a simplified framework that takes all of sustainability into account. So you've got the environmental, but you've also got social, inclusivity, diversity, well-being. All this. They've got it's a hexagonal shape, and they've got all these things around. And what they do is they give you a framework as to how to start. First of all, by measuring, and then they give you an approach. So measure first, assess where you are, then start setting your targets for what you want to achieve, and then it's an ongoing process of continually assessing how you're doing against your targets.
And does it work for smaller firms? Because this is clearly more challenging for a smaller firm.
Yeah, and that
to get diversity, if there's only six of you, is more challenging.
Well, it is. Absolutely. And the goal isn't do it all at any cost. Yeah, because, I mean, we've been there too. You've got 6-7 people. You can't possibly have every representation in your firm. But there is always, and one of the elements of the framework is realistic. So there's always going to be compromise. There is always going to be a time where, we can't afford to save the world this month, so we can't buy trees this month, and that's inevitable, and you have to accept it. And it's not about meeting it, it's about measuring it and being honest about what we're doing to try to get there. It's more about the reporting of the journey as opposed to the destination.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so it's just open and honest. Our target is this, we're nowhere near, we've missed it, but this is the things that we're trying to do. And it's more about the effort put into trying to make a better world than the metrics and the measures, or whether we hit them or exceed them. That's actually not important. It's what are we doing that's different, that's trying to make a better world. And that's the thing that you actually report on. Yeah,
I think certainly in the accounting industry, that it's something that a lot of firms do anyway. There's something called, have you ever heard of Buy One, Give One?
No.
Or B1G1 they're called.
Yes.
A lot of people
B1G1,
are like, we sign up to that. So every time we file a tax return,
Yeah.
There's credits that go onto that. There's corporation tax self-assessment. New client signs up. We've planted trees. The latest one is we are sponsoring women to be bookkeepers in Zambia, etc. So every time we file something for our clients, there is a give back somewhere, right? We wondered whether we should put like a little choice at the end of the email saying, would you like your credit to go to here, here, or here? Or it's overcomplicating it. A lot of our clients don't know we do it because it's not really what it's about.
But actually, it's really important.
Yeah,
it's actually the more important thing, because then again, if you did that to me, I said, well, actually, I'm not going to say, I'm going to tell the world about it, but I can actually add that to what we're doing. Say, well, there's another thing we've done that month. Instead of doing our own thing this month, we've done this month. I think
signed off my tax return. I gave someone clean water for a week.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah. And to be honest, the fact that we do it is more important than reporting it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's on our website, but other than that, we kind of keep a little bit quiet about it. I mean, we didn't do Christmas cards or anything like that this year. We gave to B1G1 instead.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because it felt like the right thing to do.
Moving on to probably the butt end of the podcast.
I thought you were going to say highlight.
So did I. I'll be honest with you, Tania. I thought.
Moving on to the highlight of the podcast. No, that would imply that everything we've just spoken about isn't a highlight. I was trying to. Anyway, we're going to go on to. Well, this is actually a returning section. We're going to do Hide or Pride first, and for this time with Hide or Pride, we have a jingle and also someone that's going to sing the jingle. Tania. No, I'm joking.
That would be quite good. Put people on the spot.
It would be, right? Put them right on the spot. I think I remember the button.
We move on to Hide or Pride.
No!
Hide or Pride.
I feel I should go and get a job at HMRC.
Yeah.
Whoa, I'm not that inefficient. Right, so I've got 5 questions here. It's basically just yes or no, essentially, Hide or Pride. The one thing that you'd be proud of and the other thing that you would just be like, no, not doing that. So it's just choose between one or the other. So ACA or ACCA?
ACCA, because I have it only.
Yeah.
They're both good.
Working in practice or working in industry?
Practice.
Okay. Buying a house or buying into a partnership?
Ooh.
Ooh.
House.
Okay.
Ooh.
Compliance or advisory?
Oh, you need both.
You have to pick one.
Advisory.
Okay. Talking to HMRC on the phone or being locked in Alcatraz?
Alcatraz.
Okay. I thought that would be the case.
That was the shortest answer time out amongst all of them.
And that was Hide or Pride.
Hide or Pride.
Wow.
Lovely.
Isn't that good?
Wasn't that
That
good?
was good. Lovely.
So before we get onto the final section, we're actually going to do a shout out to one of our community members, and we're also going to give out 2 T-shirts.
Merch
But
time.
I will hand that over to Aaron because
Yes.
that's his section.
A special shout out to one of the more active and most active members in our community, Mr. Andrew Dominguez, I believe it is. So thank you very much for your contributions and always taking part in everything we put up in the community. Very much appreciated. And we've got a lovely VIB T-shirt for you. And
Very important beanie.
also to our first guest, Tania Bennett. Appreciate you coming on the
It's a
podcast.
pleasure.
And you will also today be leaving with a VIB tee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
24 karat gold. It's diamond encrusted.
Yeah.
Right, and on to the final, and clearly your favourite part there. He can't
Yeah.
wait to get his hands on the lunchbox.
I feel
but
like that's all
this,
you're here for
This
sometimes.
is all he's here for.
You're probably
But
right.
this part of the podcast is... Oh my god.
God.
I should have written this down. I'll try that again. Snack attack. God.
It's like being on. Do you remember Why Don't You?
No.
Oh. That makes me look really old then. Thanks.
Sorry.
Snack attack. This is the segment where I drag out a blast from the past. Something maybe I haven't eaten for 20-something years.
Okay.
Maybe more, sometimes less. Or something that takes my interest that I've never had and think we should try.
Mm-hmm.
In our special snack attack box.
suspense.
Drum roll.
This week, oh, I like that. This week, we have blue ribbons
Okay.
and fig rolls.
Oh, they're fig roll. I thought they were someone else when I saw them put in the box earlier. I thought that was going to be chocolate.
Oh,
I was hoping that was
Sorry.
chocolate.
I'm sorry to disappoint you. I actually, I can tell you exactly when I had one of these. The first time, I was 7 years old.
Thank you.
So it's been 41 years since I first picked up a blue ribboned
Should I
biscuit.
tell you when I
Wow.
last ate one?
Mm.
About 8 weeks ago.
I'm getting the sensation that you're more biscuitly educated than I am.
Biscuitly educated.
I take my biscuits seriously.
I mean, it's got to be done.
Yeah.
Is this openly available in shops?
Yes.
Because this stuff you bring in, I never see.
I popped in my DeLorean and went back
Where do you
to
think he got it from?
1983 and picked up one.
He probably just got it from Tesco, right?
They're delicious.
They are good. No, look at his face. What's wrong with that? It's just wafer and chocolate.
What's not to like about that?
That reminds me of something else.
What is it?
You know what I'm talking about.
I'm going to call it tonics. I don't know if it's tonics, the wafer bars that you buy in the gold
Oh,
wrappers.
okay. I know what you mean.
Mm.
Yeah.
I quite like that. That was quite nice.
I'm impressed
I
with
like biscuits.
your knowledge of biscuits.
Biscuitly educated.
Biscuitly educated. It's true.
I like that phrase.
So, overall, Gen Z, not so sure.
No, I like it. It just
I
reminds me of
the
another,
face you
another
made when you
chocolate.
bit into it would say otherwise.
But, now this next one.
I really don't know about this next one.
I wasn't a fan of these in my day.
No?
No.
You might be
Oh
now,
God,
though.
I thought
'cause
it
you're
was going to be
dad loved
soft.
them.
more of an aficionado.
These are hard.
Sorry, remind me what this is again?
It's a fig roll.
It's 2.5 inches of deliciousness.
Oh God, smells a bit weird.
These were never my thing.
Oh, I love these. Back in the day. Fig roll, I give you.
Yep. It tastes the same.
That's a no from me. That's a hard no from me on that one.
So,
And this
chocolate,
is a snack.
fig rolls. Chocolate every time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
They were
you're in
huge.
heaven. I'm just like, oh, I don't know about that. That's joining the penguin. I'm not doing it.
You see? Okay, that's just disparaging to the penguin.
I'm because he threw the penguin on the last episode of the podcast.
Hit or miss. It was a miss. Now, that makes me want to have a cup of tea.
Well, on that note, we should probably go and get a cup of tea. So
Biscuits
Yes.
are the gateway drug.
Well, I'm going to bring some. Well, I'll send in some suggestions for other snack
Absolutely,
attack food.
please do.
Yeah.
You can also do that in the community if you'd like. Go and suggest things for us to have on Snack Attack.
Yes.
Well, I've tried them on my son, and he did not like them and could not believe when we were regular consumers of this food in the 80s. So.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, we definitely need those on.
Oh,
Aaron's face.
I think I'm sick that week.
Oh yeah, that's very convenient. You don't know when it is. Yep. Okay. And that was Snack Attack. Got it that time.
Good job.
Spot on. Anyway, Aaron, do you want to just wrap up the podcast?
Yes, Tanya, thank you for coming.
Pleasure.
Gents, as always, thank you, Beanies. We'll see you in the next one.